you come along and decide, to lay your life down for ministry. What what did that feel like? What was that experience? Hearing the call, and how has that evolved over time?
Well, it wasn't something that I really wanted. It wasn't something that I ever really thought about growing up, as evidenced by the fact that I got thrown out of youth group.
I'm not sure that's evidence of
Yeah,
anything, but
yeah.
we'll see.
It's evidence that I'm annoying. Um, and so what wasn't something that I really kind of always thought that I would do. And so I really wanted to go into business. I love business, enjoy business a lot. Worked in real estate development in high school and college, and loved that. And got out and worked for a management consulting firm in Atlanta. And after I'd done that for a couple of years after college, majored in finance and history, and I was using the finance part of that. And after I'd done that for a couple of years, and Anita and I we were engaged, um, I had this nagging dissatisfaction in my life. I loved the job that I had. I liked the people that I worked with. I was effective at what I did. Things were fine at one level, but it just didn't satisfy me. And I just kept thinking, this is not what I was made for.
Mm.
Um, and at the same time, Anita and I started going to church together. And this was the first time that I'd been in church in probably close to 10 years in any meaningful way. And the pastor there, a guy named Farrell Drummond, he was extraordinary and took an interest in me. And I developed a friendship with him. And I started to do different kinds of leadership stuff there. And so I sort of got this spiritual reawakening going. I've got this dissatisfaction of, as much as I like this, I always thought this is what I was going to do. Just, I don't think this is what I was made for vocationally. Um, Getting ready to marry my bride. And one day I was in New York on a project. I spent about half my time in Manhattan and half in Atlanta. And we were down on Wall Street, and I was going with one of the partners. I was sort of the underling, and he was uh, the main guy. And we were going into an investment bank office, a very, 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 very nice office building right down there, overlooking the Statue of Liberty and the water there. And it was pouring down rain. It was cold. I think it was maybe February, March. It was nasty New York winter stuff, especially for somebody that had gone to high school in Florida. And we get out of the cab and we're walking in, and I was kind of full of myself. I mean, because it was a fun role for me. I was like, I'm doing this is, and we're walking into this building, and there was a homeless man huddled on the subway grating in the pouring down rain, and the heat's coming up, which is why he's lying on the grating, and I had to step over him to get into the building. And at that moment, God spoke to a place deep inside of me.
Mm.
And he said, when are you going to stop serving yourself and start serving me? And so you take that nagging dissatisfaction, you take sort of this reawakening that's going on in my church and with my fiance at the time. And then in that experience. And so I came back to Atlanta from that trip, and I took Anita out to dinner. And I said, I need to tell you something, sweetie. I said, I think God's calling me to leave the business world and to go into full-time ministry. And very unlike Anita, she didn't say anything.
Mm.
The pistol had no, she just looked at me and she goes, okay. And I said, so you and I are engaged. And to be fair to you, you got engaged to a guy who was a businessman. And for me to say yes to ministry, to full-time ministry, I can't say yes for the both of us to that. I can give my yes to God. So if you want to break up, I get it, because you didn't sign up for this. And she said, why don't you take me home? And so she went home. I don't know, 2, 3 days later. We went together again. She goes, okay, I didn't see this coming, but I'm in.
Mm.
I'm with you. So then we kind of began to. So My last day at work for the firm I was working with was on like a Monday. We got married on Saturday. We went on our honeymoon. The next weekend, we moved to a little tiny Methodist church in rural Georgia, where I was actually the pastor before I even went to seminary, and was the pastor of this little 100-member church. Marvelous, marvelous people in Carrollton, Georgia, and drove an hour to seminary at Emory every day, each way, for 3 years. And she taught school, and that's it.
So you're doing the Wall Street thing, and when you walk in and tell your boss, your colleagues,
Mm.
"Hey, I'm making the shift. I'm gonna go and do this," or what was their reaction?
Boy, it was all over the map, man. It was all over the map. It really was. I've been really lucky in my life, and in almost every season of my life, I've been surrounded by a lot of really good people.
Mm.
And these were some good. In this case, it was mostly men. There was one or two women that I worked with in that group. One of them said, "I always thought you might do something kind of like that." And he was the guy that I respected the most. He was not somebody that went to church. He was not. He would have considered himself an atheist. So much so that even 20, 25 years later, as he was getting ready to die, out of the blue, I hadn't talked to him in 10 years. He calls me up and he says, "Alan, I don't get it." He said, "I don't see what you see. I don't understand that at all." He said, "I have studied this since the last time you and I were together. I've read everything. I just don't see it."
Mm.
But on that day when I walked in and I told him, the guy that I admired the most, he was actually relatively supportive. It was like, "I always knew there was something about you that was a little different." And one guy, who was a very devoted Southern Baptist, like, "Yeah, good for you, man. Proud of you. That's great." And others were just like, "Well, okay, I didn't see that coming, but if that's what you want to do, okay."
Anyone critical?
Um, at work, not overwhelmingly, no, no.